thank you for this question, and thanks for inviting me for this interview. I think both of your questions are obviously linked. So the EU is really a very long-standing and trustworthy and partner and friend of Nepal. We have been providing development cooperation since a long time here in Nepal. And we also, of course, want to support Nepal on its path to graduation from least developed country status. And I think both work hand in hand. So here in Nepal, we have been mainly working on human capital development because that is seen as the basis for all sustainable development. So together with the government of Nepal and with many other development partners, we work on supporting quality education, but also inclusive education so that no one is left behind. And unfortunately, we have seen that with COVID, the regional inequalities are increasing. And also schools were closed, so some pupils could have digital schooling, others couldn't. So these inequalities are increasing. So we will continue to support quality education and inclusion in education here in Nepal. We also continue to support Nepal in nutrition, because nutrition is really the basis of the development of the people. And unfortunately, Nepal is still doing not so well in stunting and in wasting, and which has an effect on the future development of each child. So there, together with UNICEF and also with other partners, we support they call it the 1,000 golden days of the child. It starts with the pregnancy of the mother, because in Nepal still, pregnant women do not get enough food, enough nutritious food. Women are often the last ones to eat, although they do a lot of physical work, so they spend a lot of calories and they don't get enough calories. So when they're pregnant, when they are carrying the children, at least they should get enough, so that it has a good start for the child in its life, and then we continue in the childhood of the child. Then we want to support Nepal in green, resilient, inclusive development. This is a common priority with the government of Nepal. It's a priority for the EU because we have our own EU Green Deal, which is our own internal growth strategy, where we decouple economic growth and greenhouse gas emissions, and where we feel this is really an opportunity to build back better together. I think we really have to use this opportunity, because although Nepal is not such a big greenhouse gas emitter, although Nepal is increasing its greenhouse gas emissions, it is very vulnerable to climate change. So we need to work on this development together. A common priority, which is very important. It's not only about green growth, so about creating green jobs here in Nepal so that young people don't have to go abroad, but it's also about sustainable development so that the graduation from least developed country is sustainable, so that you don't relapse into least developed country. But it's also about being inclusive. So we strongly believe that in order to pursue recovery, economic recovery, you need a whole of government approach and also a whole of society approach. You need to include everyone in society to contribute to sustainable economic development. Then the last pillar of our development cooperation is good governance. So you know the EU always promotes democracy, human rights, rule of law, and that is also what we do here in Nepal. So we support Nepal's institutions in the rollout of federalism. We support public finance management at the federal level, but also at the provincial and local levels. And of course, we support Nepal's institutions to further inclusive societies, equal societies, which are resilient societies. So we also, for example, support the National Human Rights Commission. So so that is also a very important pillar for us, that one. We continue to work with Nepal in terms of development cooperation. So we have just adopted our multi-annual indicative program, and we have also just adopted our first annual action program. And we will continue to work in Nepal on these priorities that I have just said, and to support Nepal's graduation from least developed country. That is very clear to us, and we will continue to support Nepal. We have, during the pandemic, we have provided a lot of support through medical equipment, for example, during the second wave. Now we are supporting with the donation of vaccines. But obviously, at the start of the pandemic, the European Union was at the forefront of the creation of COVAX, because we strongly believe in multilateral solutions. So we are one of the lead donors to COVAX, and Nepal has also received a lot of vaccines through COVAX. That is one way. We will continue to support Nepal also in disaster risk reduction, because that is also a very important aspect of the vulnerabilities of Nepal. And then we strongly believe in this green agenda, so this GRID agenda, this Kathmandu Declaration, to support green, resilient, inclusive development in Nepal. So we continue to do this as European Union, but also increasingly so as Team Europe. You may have heard about this. This is European Union and also our EU member states together, because of course we are stronger together and we want to have more joint actions to support Nepal. We welcome Nepal's ambitions that were launched at the COP26 in Glasgow by the Prime Minister. So I think that we are very much in line with Nepal there, because we, as the EU, also want to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. So we're very ambitious too. But the EU only emits 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's very important for us to have partners and to work with partners to share our experience and to have as much alignment as possible. So we absolutely want to work with Nepal on this support for climate action. Let me also come back on what I said on least developed country, because the EU is a major provider, lead provider of development cooperation, but we are also a big market, and we are also a provider of technology. So all of these aspects make that our work together with Nepal is very important, and we want to continue that work. Maybe I can also say, very specifically on climate action, we want to support private sector investment in renewable energy here in Nepal, but also in energy efficiency. There is still a lot of energy which is being lost, and I think that is also a way, to increase energy efficiency is good for the climate. So that will be one of our flagship programs in the coming years, together with our colleagues from Germany. We'll be working on that, and also on public-private partnerships on renewable energy and energy efficiency. That's one of the examples. Transitional justice is very important for us, because it's very important that each society resolves these issues and to become inclusive, and that will lead to sustainable development. So it's very important that to have a nationally led, very strong process, but with a strong victim-centered. So you need to have a strong consultation of the victims. Nepal, there has been some progress, so it's very good that Prime Minister Deuba, one of the first things he did when he took up his tenure was to prolong the mandates of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Commission for Victims. He appointed the commissioners, and also the foreign minister, when he went to the United Nations General Assembly in September 21, he reiterated Nepal's commitment to finalize the transitional justice process. Also, Nepal has accepted all of the recommendations which were emitted by the Universal Periodic Review by the United Nations in January 21 on transitional justice. So all of those are very good steps. Obviously, there are still some missing steps. The amended Act on Transitional Justice, which had been requested by the Supreme Court, has not been passed by Parliament. I believe there has not been sufficient consultation with victims groups on this act. The EU is ready to support Nepal in this process if we are asked to do so. But we strongly believe this is a nationally led process that needs to come to a conclusion rather sooner than later for Nepal to be able to sustain its development. It has to be really victims-centered. And so one of the first steps should be victim reparation. Nepal's constitution is very progressive and allows Nepal to enjoy a lot of human rights. Yes? So for example, in terms of gender equality, in terms of diverse societies, of caste-based discrimination. The Constitution is a very good text, and there have been bylaws which have also been passed. But now, partly due to the political instability, much of the progress is stalled in adopting some of the legislation that is still needed to make sure that the Constitution is rolled out also in terms of federalism by the provincial and the local authorities. So, of course, there is still some way off in practice. I think Nepal has made huge progress, for example, in terms of gender equality. That is also one of the very important foreign policy priorities of the EU, of the European Union. We also very strongly believe in gender equality, in an inclusive society. So we work also on gender equality here. Unfortunately, the COVID crisis has undone some of the progress that has been made in recent years. There has been more gender-based violence. Women have been more the victim of the COVID crisis because they are hugely overrepresented in the informal sector, so they have enjoyed less social protection. So there still needs a lot to be done. Obviously, what I mentioned before, the Transitional Justice Commissions, their mandates and their means need to be reinforced. We are continuing to support the National Human Rights Commission. We continue to support democracy. We have also we continue to support civil society, so that civil society also is empowered and takes up its prerogatives to monitor the human rights situation in Nepal and to be part of the decision-making process. Yes. So that is a very important issue for us. Safety of the passengers is our first concern. So it would seem that Nepal has made some progress in terms of safety regulations. Our experts from the European Aviation Safety Agency have done a desk review. I'm hoping that they will come to Nepal soon to see whether in practice all of this progress holds true. A very important aspect is to eliminate the conflict of interest that currently exists within the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal, CAN. Yeah? What is important in all safety is that there is a separation between the handling services and the oversight, the oversight body. Yes? They shouldn't be the same. Yes? The one who's putting on the screw shouldn't be the same who's checking whether the screw is actually put on. Yeah? This has not happened. So there is this bill, which is in Parliament, to split the Civil Aviation Authority, which has been held up due to the fact that Parliament hasn't passed any major bill in the last year. This bill is there since 3-4 years. Yeah. So not only does this bill need to be adopted, but it also needs to be implemented. The bill needs to be endorsed, but then more importantly, it needs to be implemented. Yes? So that implementation will take some time. I hear from the civil aviation authorities that it would take about a year. We have always provided, and we have continued to provide, and we will continue to provide. The EU is one of the lead development partners of Nepal. Yeah? Obviously, political instability goes together. Political instability also has an impact, has an effect on economic development, yes? On investment, on foreign direct investment, on the trust that investors could have in Nepal. So the fact that it takes a long time for bills to be passed in Parliament For example, for us, we have an ongoing policy dialogue with Nepal. You know, the EU provides the majority of its support through the country systems, through the government systems, because we strongly believe that that is a way to reinforce the country systems and to have a strong ownership by the country, yes? Because we support your priorities. We do that, we support the agriculture development strategy, we support the rollout of federalism, we support education that way. But as long as those acts are not passed, like the Education Act, the Civil Service Act, this will hamper our policy dialogue, and it will hamper any progress in our support to these policy reforms. So yes, it is important. I think it is in Nepal's interest, in our interest, in everyone's interest, that Nepal remains a strong democracy, a sovereign country in respect of rule of law, but also we support very strongly multilateral cooperation, effective multilateral cooperation grounded in international-based, rules-based order. So that is very important for us. I think it's very important for Nepal. It's a common priority there too. I think we see an obvious turn towards this region, yes, towards the Indo-Pacific region. Also for the EU, I mean, the EU and this region are very closely interlinked, yes. We are a top investor in the region, a leading development partner, we are a strong trading partner. So it is also in our interest to contribute to the region's security, stability, prosperity, to sustainable development. So that's very important for us. That's why we are here, yes. I think, you know, for me always, Nepal, you consider yourself a small country, but you have 30 million inhabitants and consumers. So you are also a strong market, no? Some of your production could be used by the internal consumption. You have now, because of COVID, thanks to COVID, more internal tourism, for example. No? Nepalese are also discovering their country. So I think what is also in our interest, as I said before, is to continue to work together on prosperity, on sustainable development, in respect of democracy, of rule of law, of human rights, and of a common, strong, multilateral order. What is very important for us also, I mean, once Nepal will graduate from least developed country, is for Nepal to accede to a generalized systems of preferences, which is a preferential trade regime from the European Union. It's very close to the current preferential trade regime, which is everything but arms. In order for Nepal to accede to that preferential trade regime, Nepal needs to ratify and to implement some international conventions on environmental rights, on human rights, on labor rights, so such as the ILO Convention on labor inspection, on freedom of association. So we want to support Nepal in its preparation to accede to GSP+. This may seem a long way for Nepal because it's in 2029, but it takes a long time to ratify these international conventions and to implement them. So that is why we think we should start the preparations now, and the European Union is ready to support Nepal in these preparations.